it going? It is Fangs, and welcome to a storytime style video that I'm going to be bringing for you guys today. So, I haven't done one of these in a while, and you guys seem to really enjoy these, and this is a story I actually told on a Black Ops video a long time ago when I had not that many subs. It probably has a total of 2,000 views on it, and it is pretty much called what I would consider to be saying as My House from Hell. So, whenever I was younger, I'm sure you've seen, if you watched the whole Draw My Life thing, you know that I went through kind of a rough childhood. And it started at a certain part in my life, and it had to do with drugs and alcohol, and it was not me doing the drugs and alcohol, it was family members. I don't want to get into too much detail, but you'll kind of be able to tell from this story. So, whenever I was, I believe it was 10 years old, I was 9 or 10 years old, I lived in Miami, Oklahoma. If you've ever lived in Miami, Oklahoma, I'm sure you're gonna say it. Are you sure? Someone in the comments down below is gonna be like, I live somewhere near there, whatever. Well, I live there with my mom. A lot of my family lives there. I am Native American, in case I haven't said it a million times already, so you probably already know that. But they live down, I guess it's up. I live in Texas, so they live up in Miami, Oklahoma. Some of them live like in the Wyandotte area, some live in Fairland. And so at this time, I was living with my mom, my stepdad. We just had a little sister, which is my little sister. Her name is Taylor. And she probably wasn't even, she had to be like 8 or 9 months old. She couldn't walk, she couldn't talk, she couldn't crawl, that's for sure. And then my brother, who is a few years older than me. By the way, I guess I made a video one time where I said like I had a brother. I have a brother. I still have an older brother. He's still there. I don't know why I said had, but people thought that my older brother had passed away or something. He's not. He is fine. He's crazy, but he is fine. Anyway, so we moved into a house, or we were going to move into a house. We moved a lot. My mom just never ever has been able to find a house that she just completely loves. I think the one she's in right now, she might actually really like. She's been there for a while. But when I was growing up, she couldn't find one that she really loved. She'd buy a house and she'd even like redo it and do everything she wanted to do to it. But it just was never the right one. She's OCD about houses, I guess is what it is. So we moved a lot. I had to move at least like 13 times whenever I was in elementary school. And I did go to different elementary schools because of that. But on this time, we decided to move into a house. We'd been living in the house on A Street, the one that I actually told you the story about where the door sling open. So we'd been living in that one, and she wanted to move into a bigger house, and there was this really good deal on a house in Fairland, Oklahoma, out in the middle of nowhere. It was literally, I remember driving up to it the first time, and for one, it looked like the Amityville House Horror, or whatever that movie is. Like, it had these windows, the windows just like it on the very top floor that like looked down into everything. And there was a neighbor who was across, like, it wasn't even a street, I don't know what it was, but they were right across, and then there was nobody for miles. It was just trees and woods, and there was a huge lake, which at that time in my life, I was already terrified of scary things, so it made me think that Jason was gonna come out of that huge lake. We literally lived, it was our house, a barn, and a back house, and then this huge lake right to the left, so it was just right there. If you looked out the windows, out of the Amityville House Horror windows, you saw the lake right there. So I didn't get to see the house before my mom bought it. I only saw it the first day when we were moving in. And the first day we were moving in, I decided that I was gonna go out to the lake and just, you know, try to walk along. It was rocks. It had a lot of rocks along the lake. So I decided I was gonna walk along that. And somehow, I happened to slip and I rolled my ankle into those rocks. That was already my first sign that things were not gonna go well in this house. And because it was like rolled, I was trying to get out of there, freaking out, like trying to get back to where my house was. It wasn't too far away, but I was trying to get back to it because I was afraid that Jason was gonna come out of that water and kill me. So that was already something that like terrified me in the first day we were moving in. So my room in the house, the whole like lower floor had 3 different bedrooms. And so there was my parents', there was a guest room, and then there was my sister's room. There was a really big living room. There was also a kitchen. You're gonna notice the lighting is changing a lot in here. I'm so sorry. The light changes at this time of day where I live right now. But there was a huge kitchen, and then there was a back house that my brother stayed in. It was a whole house. It had its own living room, kitchen, and everything. I don't even understand why it was back there. And for me, I had the creepiest room, period. So the whole second floor was like one of those full room floors. There was nothing else but one long room, and my mom had put her like workout stuff on one part of it, and then my room was on the very end of it. And guess what windows I had to look out of? The Amityville House Horror windows were my window. And my bed wasn't even my own bed that came, because this house came with 2 beds built into the walls. So these beds came out of the walls and created 2 twin beds. And one of my beds was one of those twin beds that had been there. God knows who slept on it or died on it before me. You know that had to happen. It probably didn't, but that's what I thought at the time. So I only actually stayed at this house. My mom lived in it for 6 months. I probably only stayed in it 3 or 4 times. And that is because The very first night we were there, we went to get groceries. We had to drive God knows how far to get groceries. We came back, and after I'd already rolled my ankle, I happened to somehow, there was this like pipe coming out of the ground and sticking out, and it was dark. I tripped over something and shoved my leg right into that pipe, and it penetrated my leg because it had a sharp part on it, and I had this huge cut on my leg. This was all the first day, and I was like, okay, something is not right about this. Something is going on. At that age, like, I was all just curious, and I was wondering, and I didn't understand like what was happening. So at that point, I was already creeped out by the house, and I decided if I'm gonna stay here, I'm gonna have to have a friend come stay with me. So the second night rolls around. This is all in the first days of being in the house that tells you probably shouldn't be in the house. The second day rolls around. I have my friend there. For one, we had gone out to the store. I don't know what they were getting. I think my parents were getting beer or something like that. I don't know what it was at that age, but we come back. My mom has my sister in her arms, and somehow she happens to slip and fall with my sister in her arms. Luckily, my mom did like a barrel roll, and my sister landed, so she landed on her back. She injured herself. She had some cuts on her back, but my sister was just fine. And I was thinking, what is going, like, why is everyone getting injured here? This can't be real life. What's happening? My friend, on the other hand, did not get injured, but when we were staying there the entire night, I remember we were sleeping on the beds the second night. I was on the left one, she was on the right one, and I just remember waking up with this terrible, nauseating feeling that somebody was watching me. I couldn't get over it. Like, it could have just been me playing tricks in my own head, but I felt like somebody was watching me, and I kept hearing, like, running-ish noises on the floor, like on my floor where I was, and so it just woke me up all night. Not to mention that my friend that was sitting in the right was waking up to the same sounds. So we were like talking to each other, like, did you hear that? Did you hear that? And I'm like, oh my God. And we're just freaking out as we can stare at this Jason Lake out of our window. It was just one of the most terrifying experiences and nights of my life. You can say that it was just our head playing tricks with us, but to this day, I do feel like that was something running around up there that was playing with us. So I decided after that night I was not going to stay there. I did a couple other nights besides that, and it was still the same. I wouldn't sleep in my room up there. I had to sleep down into the living room. And even then, if you looked out, like, the front door, you could see into, like, the neighbors. And then if you went to the back screen door, you could see into the woods. And it just seemed like there was something horrible going on with the house, and I couldn't quite understand it, but it made me not want to stay there. I legitimately stopped living with my mom and my family in that house. I started living with my grandmother and my Aunt Cindy. I'd go back and forth between the two because I just could not stand being out there. My mom was like really upset about it, but I could not stand being out there. So while I was away and I wasn't living in the house, some things were going on. Apparently our dog, Teensy, she was a little bitty chihuahua, somehow, some way, got out of the house, and there was these, in the back house, the front porch had just little, like, you could see, there's almost like it was metal, and there's like little spaces where you could fall between. Well, she just happens to fall between them, breaks her leg. Because she's so small and she breaks her leg, she doesn't make it through like whatever was going on with her, and she ends up passing away because apparently she, like, I think she had like a heart thing go on or something. I don't know, maybe she had like a dog heart attack. I forget exactly what happened to her, but they took her to the vet and she ended up passing away, which was really sad because we had had her for like 5 or 6 years. So that's like just things building and building on top of this house being bad. My mom and my brother got into a fight. My brother ended up leaving. He didn't want to live in the back house anymore. He ended up leaving as well because he felt just as weird being in that house. And things started to go really weird with my mom. So this is the time of her life where she started doing bad things, and I guess is she experimented with some drugs and different things. But her and my stepdad just were not getting along at this time. And in this house, it just happened that they decided that they were going to get a divorce. They had been married and they were happy and they were fine, so I didn't quite understand it, especially at that age. I didn't see her and my dad's divorce, so I didn't know what it was like, but I felt really sad when her and my stepdad got divorced because my stepdad was around all the time. He helped me with everything. He helped me with sports. He was a really nice guy. So whenever my stepdad left, they would share my sister, so my sister wasn't there all the time, and sometimes my mom would just be there by herself. So I asked her about this house, and I wanted to know what it was like for her by herself, and she told me, without me ever telling her what I thought I heard, because at this time in my life, I'd like told my parents all this stuff, and they would be like, you're just hearing things. So I decided I just wasn't gonna talk about it anymore if things creeped me out. And so she said that while she was in there, she felt like she never wanted to leave. She felt like there was something that was keeping her there. And she lived in this house by herself for like 3 or 4 months after. And so she stayed there by herself, and she said she could hear what sounded like children running around in the top floor. This, believe it or not, I know you're gonna give me crap, but she said she could hear that. She said that no matter how much she like was sad that everybody was gone, she still felt like she needed to be there. And finally, at one point, my aunts were like, you know, I don't think that you should be living out there by yourself. Maybe you should move back into town. And they took like a struggle in a long period of time, but they talked my mom into leaving the house. So everything went wrong in this house. Everything you can think of went wrong. Injuries, people experiencing things, people leaving, people not wanting to be. It's almost as if we all got pushed away from the house while my mom was the only one getting drawn to stay in it. On the very last day that my mom was living there, we were all helping move the stuff out. We had some of my cousins over and we were moving all the stuff out of the house. My mom, for one, was in the shed and she was like getting some stuff out of the shed, and somehow, I mean, I guess it could have been windy, but the door slammed shut on her, which was creepy enough as it is, because it was like something didn't want her to leave, and then the shed's just locking her in there, and we actually had to like open the door to get her out of the shed. Also, my cousin Nick decided he was gonna go play around in the wooded area and walk back there, and he found a graveyard, and the graveyard had at least, I think, like 8 bodies in it. It had been from a long time ago or something, like family from a long time ago, and like 3 or 4 of the graves were children. So we had all of this stuff going on with this house. Now, if you don't believe in paranormal stuff, that's totally up to you. But I believe a little bit if there was some kind of like demonic entity in that house that didn't want us there, only wanted my mom there. Could have been those children, could have been anything. I don't know exactly what it was because I didn't get enough time to experience it, but I do know that house ruined my family. After that, my mom was never the same until like later in life. That's when she started having her struggles and her problems, and it was just like, I blame a lot of stuff on the house. Maybe it's just something like a crutch for me to do, but I've my entire life blamed so much stuff on that house. I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced anything like this, but it was a big deal at that age of my life, and I still think about it to this day. I actually was like thinking about making this video, and I was having nightmares about it coming into like the last 3 days. I told Will that I was talking about how we were in the house and it was creepy, and I remembered every detail of it, and for some reason me and Will were looking to buy it in a dream. I don't know, but the house haunted me my entire life. So yeah, I mean, that wasn't that scary of a story. It's kind of like a ghost story, but not really. Like, I did hear things, I did feel things. Some really bad things happened in the house, and my family pretty much split up completely because of that house, or maybe not because of the house, but while we were in it, which makes me feel like it was because of that house. But it's gotta be one of the worst situations, and it always makes me think when I like see these movies about these stories and they're based on a true story, I feel like they are a true story. I always will say that they are, and a lot of people don't believe in that type of stuff, and I'm not very religious at all in any way, shape, or form, but I just believe that there is like something out there, like when you die there's something that comes back, because I've obviously seen it once, you've heard from one story, and then I've had it just be a big situation whenever I was a child. It's not so bad now, although when I did go to Alcatraz, I got very sick inside one of the cells and inside the mess hall, so I don't know, maybe I'm sensitive to these things. I don't know exactly what it is, but that is going to be it for this story of my house from hell. I thought I'd bring it to you guys. If you guys did enjoy it, you want to hear other stories, I don't have just serious stories like this. I got funny ones, I got crazy ones. I've had a wild life. I mean, I'm only 28, but it's been pretty wild so far. So if you do want to hear that, put that in the comments down below. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.